here in beautiful Boulder, California. You know what we do around here. We take a spiked baseball bat to the narrative, and I am very pleased to be joined on this historic September 11th when the anniversary of this day is now old enough to vote, when the war in Afghanistan is old enough to join the army and go fight in the war in Afghanistan. I'm stand-up comedian, writer, host of Forkful of Noodles, Krish Mohan. How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me, Steve. I'm
I am.
excited.
I'm,
I'm
I'm,
excited
I'm
to be here.
stoked to have you on. I am. I know I've said this to you, but I don't know if I've said this to the people who are going to watch this. But I saw you uh, with Lee Camp and Eleanor Goldfield in Santa Cruz last year uh,
Yeah,
at
yeah,
the Kawumba Jazz Center.
yeah. My wife was on that show as well. Liz Victory, she was on that show. She kicked off with some music. And yeah, that was a really fun show. We tried a little bit of a different format for that show by including like spoken word and music, and we've done that. Lee has done that on his other live comedy shows across the country. So and it's always fun to like whenever I get to open for him, which I'm going to be opening for him in Milwaukee on September 20th and Madison on September 21st. So it should be like his fans are just super generous and super kind. And it's always like, okay, I don't think I can drink as much as everybody here.
Oh man, and you're going to Milwaukee and
Yeah.
like the drunkest places in America. And that's no bullshit. Like whenever they do a study, like what's the drunkest city in America? It's either Milwaukee or Madison.
Yeah, Wisconsin doesn't. Can I curse on this?
Hmm.
Okay, Milwaukee and Wisconsin, or just the state of Wisconsin, does not fuck around with their beer.
No.
Like they know how to drink and they celebrate it, which is awesome. But I can do like two to three, and then I gotta, and then like the next morning is super rough, where I'm like, what's happening? Like I gotta reevaluate everything. But his fans are awesome, man. And I'm very like I'm very honored that I get to open for him and perform in front of a crowd that gives a shit.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's
It,
always it always means a lot. So make
it was funny as fuck at the Santa Cruz show. Um you killed it. I actually I came in a little bit late when your wife was opening, because I was getting really high in the parking lot. Um, and we get in and we sit, and Eleanor crushes it, and Lee comes on and fucking and the Santa Cruz audience um has seen some shit.
yeah.
Like it's a weird town that was getting like stabby while getting gentrified, while getting overrun with homeless. And our homeless zoo has been relocated 3 times. I'm not in Santa Cruz proper, I'm up in the mountains. But the homeless zoo keeps getting moved to a larger and larger open air pen.
Yeah.
Um, which is just one of the cruelest fucking things that I think as just passerbys to life we witness. Is
Right.
the reemergence of the modern day Hoovervilles, tent cities outside of the halls of government, because that's where they're parking the homeless so they can keep a freaking eye on them. Um,
Yeah.
but so there's that, and Leaf gets to his dead baby in Pompeii joke,
Oh,
and the
right. Yeah.
audience fucking just rolls, dude, for like a good 1 minute. And he's like, what the fuck? He's like, wait a minute. Okay, for everything else, you're all, man. And I get to the dead babies, and you're like, that's the shit. Give me
That's
more
the
dead
one.
babies.
Yeah.
And it's just because, I mean, it's a weird, it was weird when they filmed Lost Boys here. And
Okay.
for
Yeah.
a number of years, you could still go to that cave, and then it got ran over by junkies and squatters, and they had to like completely shut it down.
Right. Yeah, it's always interesting. I always like I like learning the history about cities I'm in. And you know, just not just that, but it also kind of gives you like an idea of the vibe of the place that you're in. So I it's tough for me to like change my act. But I will like learn how to adjust based on the reaction I get. And it's always good for me to like have the understanding of like, oh yeah, you guys have this, you know, like a crazy homeless population here, or what, or you know, like you guys have a major problem with opioid addiction here. So okay, maybe the drug reform joke is a little touchy here, but we'll see how it goes. That sort of stuff. Like I like learning that sort of stuff. Plus, it's just cool information. Like it's cool information. Then you can get to figure out like, okay, this place is very similar to these five other places that I've been to. Um, that's kind of
Santa Cruz at this point is more or less overrun with NPR liberals
yeah,
who had Lee been at a different venue and had the NPR liberals accidentally wandered in,
right.
we would have all been expected to sit politely with our hands folded on our laps, to hold applause to a minimum, possibly the end. Um, Everyone's personal space would be exaggerately respected, and for some reason, if you didn't bring a tote bag, you would be shunned. That's that's the delay of at least more of the population now than there has ever has been. It's one of the it's one of the most unaffordable counties in the most unaffordable state.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I can see that. Yeah, we went to San Francisco. My wife and I did like a big tour together, and often we'll like go on tours together. And when we went to San Francisco, it was weird because I've grown up around homeless people a bunch. Like when I grew up in India, they were like everywhere, and it's a completely different ball game in India, right? Like it's a business, and it's kind of like it is legitimately dangerous to give money to homeless people. So like if my mom would do it, she'd kind of do it discreetly or whatever it is. But I've like grown up around homeless people coming up to us all the time, and you know, even in the States, like people will come up and I'll give them $1 or give them food or whatever it is. And when we were in San Francisco, it was just bizarre. Like I'd never been like uncomfortable, but I was uncomfortable because there was just like hopelessness there. And it
Yeah,
was just so strange to me where it was just like, yeah, like we'd ask you for money or we'd ask you for food or whatever, but there's 10 other guys that are going to do the same thing. So like, and you're probably not going to give to any of us. So fuck it. And it was just so strange, like that level. And like that, but San Francisco is kind of seen like this, you know, liberally safe haven of, you know, anything goes kind of thing. But it's got like this crazy homeless population. And all these places, it's so interesting because all the places that I'm told I should go to, because I would do really well as, you know, I guess a left-leaning comedian or whatever labels people end up putting me in because of the stuff that I talk about, is like Portland, Oregon. They're like, people are gonna love you in Portland, and it's like Portland was the crowd was kind of uncomfortable, and the only people that were laughing at the show were a couple people that like came because they knew me as one of Lee's openers. You know, like the Lee Camp
right.
crowd showed up and they were laughing, but then the other like 15, 20 people that were at the venue were just wildly uncomfortable at this level of anti-establishment, anti-war comedy, and it was kind of the same thing in San Francisco, except when it's a Lee Camp crowd, that's I think something a little different. But you know, like these sort of super liberally NPR style places end up getting really uncomfortable when you push against their boundaries of liberalism and their boundaries of what it means to be a left-leaning person. So I've always
Mhm.
kind of, it's always interesting to me. Like, I like touring the South and the Midwest. Like, I go there more than and I live on the East Coast, so it's like
Yeah.
it's also accessibility. Like, I'd love to come and do more tours in the West Coast, but right now it's very difficult for me to do that. But even when I do, like the places that where I feel like this level of anti-establishment, anti-corporate, anti-war kind of comedy that's really accepted is places like Albuquerque, New Mexico, or Phoenix, Arizona. But it's not San Francisco or Portland, or some
Fuck
of these
no.
larger places because I'm pushing against their own leftism. I'm pushing against what it means to be a good, like, if you're a liberal person, ideally what you should be is anti-war. You should be speaking out against corruption in the DNC. You should be asking for a third party. Like, that's what you should be doing, and they're not comfortable with that because their liberalism kind of stops at NPR, and I just keep pushing against it, trying to break that wall down. And that kind of stuff makes it very uncomfortable for them. And I've had a lot more, left-leaning, liberal-leaning people come up to me and ask me to do the Indian accent on stage. Why aren't you
Oh
just doing
wow.
the Indian accent? And it's like, because I don't fucking want to.
Right?
Like, that's the whole thing.
Right? Because why would I demean myself for you just to do a caricature of just to do a character voice? Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
yeah.
saw your stand up, dude. You're more than a fucking like impressionist, you know? I mean,
Thank you. I
Jesus,
appreciate that.
dude, like if you've already proven that you're better than that, then it's just demeaning as fuck to be like you should do the voice, you know?
Yeah, I mean
At least to me, I don't know.
no, I feel the same way. To me, it like I just wrote this little thing and posted it today, but I called myself a foul-mouthed academic. Like, that's who I am. Like, I like to curse, but I also like to talk about American imperialism and history and what did Chomsky say about this economic theory. Like, those are things that I get very excited to talk about. So that's
Yeah, me
the
too.
stuff that I talk about in my act. Yeah, and I add swear words to it, and the occasional comparison to somebody's balls. Like, but that's me. That's who I am. I am foul mouthed, and I like academia and all this other kind of stuff. So, but that's not particularly what you think about when you think about like a left-leaning political comedian, right?
Well,
Like, left-leaning political comedian is supposed to make fun of Trump and maybe poke fun at Mitch McConnell and
yeah,
never really get into the deep issues of where does classism come from? How is it rooted in our economics and our need to compete through capitalism, and that sort of stuff is to me the more interesting thing to explore in comedy, because that's the height of our absurdism as a species. Like, the fact that we have an economic system that runs on competition the way that it does, that's fucking hilarious to me. That we as this, like, we've come up with all of this incredible shit around us, and we were like, yeah, this is the best.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
pitting us against each other for this made up value system. Like, that's the best thing we can do.
Well,
Like,
well, I
it's
mean,
hilarious.
what ultimately happened was that the people with the standing army that was still standing at the end of the day decided what the economic system was going to be. And then there was just a series of more um, dressed up and quote unquote enlightened versions of feudalism to sort of keep the pitchforks and torches at bay.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, it's like Wall Street is more dictating the nature of things than than Donald Trump is. They're the ones lobbying for a variety of different tax breaks and loopholes for their system and for what they want. And nothing was more evident than when you saw what happened in '08, and not one fucking banker goes to prison, like, which is crazy,
One.
you know?
And
And
Timothy fucking Geithner gets put in. And fucking they still allowed like Hank Paulson to oversee what was going on through the TARP program, the Troubled Asset
right.
Relief Program, that to this day we're still paying back to the tune of the lowest estimate I saw was $14.9 trillion. The highest was around 16, little over. That not the $700 billion that we were all told we were paying back to the banks, but much more than double, triple. Like
Yeah,
we're
right.
into the like the low end 15 trillion of what we're still paying, of what taxpayers are still paying back to that. And if that doesn't underscore a couple of things, one, our fucking money is made up, it's not
Oh
real.
yeah, yeah.
And then two, there is no extent that the ruling elite and the people that they allow to be president won't go to hide just how much we're being fucked. And that's why we need a goddamn WikiLeaks, and it's why we need a fucking free Julian Assange.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. The We talked about this a little bit on the vigil last week, but the fact that he reveals the crimes committed by the elites, right? These war crimes, financial crimes, fraud, and I mean the list goes on. What TPP essentially was, and how it would fuck over the working class on a global scale. Uh, Nobody who he revealed to commit crimes goes to prison. You know, the DNC committed major election fraud. They stole the election from Bernie, and not a single person was in trial. In fact, the DNC said it should be their right to cheat. That's crazy. That's crazy. Like, you went to court and you were like, "No, we should be allowed to do this." And it's like, "No, you shouldn't."
There's
That's not how
technically no
democracy
such thing as
works.
a Democrat, is what they said.
Yeah,
Technically, there's no
right.
such thing as a Democrat. Yeah, no, all of you millions and millions of voters who you heard, if you don't go register as Democrat, you can't vote for Bernie in the primary and fucking Hillary wins. There's no such thing as a
Yeah, but
Democrat.
it's the
By the way,
same
we're
people. But
part.
it's the same people that are sitting there preaching any blue will do.
Mm-hmm.
And the DNC goes on to say, well, there's no such, it's so hard to define what a Democrat is, or whatever it is. And then they're like, well, but vote for ours, vote for our Democrat, vote for Biden or Kamala, who are just these corporate whores. That's what we want. Any blue will do. We just gotta beat Trump. And it's like, why? Because Trump's not a fucking political insider. That's why he's just trying to make a name for himself, and he did it through the most powerful office in the land. Like, but he's not a political player. He doesn't
No,
play by the rules,
the
and
thing
that's
that
why they
I
don't like him.
the thing that I always try to get people, and this happens, in just in real life and regular conversations with people, because invariably Donald Trump will come up. I always like to remind people that Donald Trump is in the WWE Hall of Fame. Donald Trump has had enough speaking lines in movies to have a SAG card and be a SAG member. And if he's not, he could be.
He
He's
could,
earned
yeah,
those
he should.
stripes. He was a successful game show host for years. And to think that that guy is actually calling the shots is fucking deluding yourself to a level that you deserve to believe what you read in fucking the New York Times. Because every time he goes off script, his own party slaps him down. This
Yeah,
Republican judge said, no, that's unconstitutional. These Republicans, his national security, the fucking Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, they all fucking are like, no, 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 off script, homeboy, off script. No, he is no different than any other GOP president would be in 2016 to 2020. The difference is he provides so much more cover for the shit that they do in the dark because he goes off script all the time. And
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, fuck, dude, we're about to get busted doing some really crazy shit, partnering with the UK and Iran against Iran. Donnie, get out there and say something racist.
Or just say whatever the fuck you want, because that's really what it boils down to. Is whenever some real important shit is happening, that Pompeo and his CIA buddies need to take care of, or John Bolton wanted to take care of, right? It's like they're just like, send him, go fucking say some shit. Doesn't matter. Don't send him with a script. The writers got the day off. Send them to the
Right,
park.
right.
There's a fucking merry-go-round for the writers to go hang out and let him, say whatever the fuck he wants. And then he does, and then he already tweets some shit at 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's what a president's supposed to do, and, and everybody freaks out, and
I
everybody loses their shit. And then in the meantime, it's like they're trying to run a coup in Venezuela, and fucking Bolton wants to start a war with Iran under false pretenses again. Like, how many times
we're
are we gonna let this
also
fucking guy do that shit?
facilitating that coup in Hong Kong. All
I
those protests in
Yeah.
Hong Kong are totally fucking United States intelligence agency color revolution. Like every single one. Why are people in Hong Kong in the streets demanding their independence while waving the American flag? Why?
Yeah, right, right.
Why? Why? Again, it boggles, but that more people aren't waking up to this. We have been increasing our militarism in Africa over the last 10 years, and this really started ramping up under Obama. Like it's out of his administration, even though the plan to bomb Somalia goes all the way back to 2003. And that video of General Wesley Clark rolling off the list of countries that are on the
Oh, right. That, yeah.
toppled list. Yeah,
And I mean, you could even say it goes all the way back to Clinton, to Bill, because he sent troops in there.
oh,
Uh, so
absolutely. And out of Bill Clinton's administration came the Project for the New American Century, which included John Bolton, but also Michael Chertoff and Paul Wolfowitz and a host of other monsters that ultimately were responsible for the arming, funding, and training of ISIS, of Al Qaeda, of Al Nusra, of Al Shabaab. Like, if
right,
you
and the
if
list just keeps going and going. Yeah,
Al, pick an Al, we funded them.
right.
We did. We're Al friendly. We are. That's the CIA there. Just if you've got an owl, we'll arm and fund and trade them. We're good for that. We're good for that. Providing health care to our own people, not so much. But if there's a country that needs to be destabilized so that we can install a right wing puppet dictator and fucking pillage the natural resources, we got your own.
Boom, that's the
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, now look at the whole news cycle that we're looking at in terms of how distracting things are. Is the argument is, did Bolton get fired or did he resign? And that's the argument, when it's like, wait a minute, are you not going to address anything about who this guy really is? Are you ignoring fucking all of it?
All of it.
The
So in the
fucking
first
cheerleader
place,
for war.
yeah,
His
he's
mustaches, his pom poms. Like, come on.
literally one of the most openly paranoid and bloodthirsty people on the planet. And Trump ran as this non-interventionist, and then got Elliot Abrams in there, got fucking McMaster's, got his
Yeah,
nicest guy was a guy named Mad Dog. He got fucking Gina Haspel, the torture queen, and fucking Nikki Haley, who just loves war almost as much as Bolton. And they're like he's just not interventionist, and they're like, oh, Bolton's a bridge too far, you know.
well, I mean, that's the thing that's kind of interesting. Is I think it was maybe 2017, like, yeah, very early on, there was sort of this corporate coup that happened within the White House, where you had people like Rex Tillerson, and Rick Perry, and all these people that had a lot of corporate ties, right? Steve Bannon, who was kind of the outsider of the corporate world, but he still had like these weird neocon think tank corporate ties too. And they all kind of had
Huge
these
in
major
Europe
positions.
too.
Right. Yeah, and but then it was like people started getting fired or they left or they couldn't deal with some shit. And then it became this military coup and it just expanded from there. Like John Kelly, McMaster's, then you had Mad Dog. All these people started getting these powerful positions within the cabinet and which just kept shifting, right? And then eventually it was John Bolton and Mike Pompeo who was his CIA director. And then there was this whole big back and forth about who Trump wanted and who Pompeo wanted, and eventually it lands on Gina Haspel because that's who Pompeo wanted, and all of it was I just read an article about how it was essentially a ploy for Pompeo to make sure that he had one foot with the intelligence community and one foot with the White House, so that he can kind of be the bridge in between the two, which is kind of eh, very evilly but like very
Deep
evil, but
statey,
really, yeah, yeah. Like you're
maybe
kind of
little
towing,
little
foot
deep
both
state
ponds.
there. Fucking
Yeah, like the deep state like is trying to vie for control of the White House. Like that's
well, okay, so
crazy,
let's
right?
talk about that for a second because I've said on the show before, and I don't know if I've actually said this on one of the vigils or not, but if you go back to the murder of JFK, that is essentially the CIA stepping up and saying we're going to run things from within at least one of these branches of government. Now we chose president. Uh, and you've got uh, LBJ, who was absolutely 100% under orders his entire presidency. You don't watch your president get assassinated right in front of you, get the job, and start thinking about when you're going to step out of line, you know? After that, um, Nixon appoints or no, yeah, Gerald Ford appoints George H.W. Bush to the director of the CIA. This
Ah,
is at the end of the Church Commission when George Bush is the cleanup guy to
right,
fucking
right.
make sure that their covert activities go well under the radar. He goes immediately from the director of the CIA to being Ronald Reagan's vice president, and Reagan, another actor, another absolute fucking out of his mind, early onset dementia, fucking, um, you
Yeah.
know, complete puppet. From George H.W. Bush to the people that are in Trump's administration now, there is like uninterrupted George H.W. Bush cabal influence. All of the CIA. We even recycled CIA directors.
Yeah,
Bill
it's a
Barr
lot
was
of it's a lot
CIA.
of yeah, like if you really look at the history of it, you can kind of see how things are orchestrated,
Yeah,
and kind of put together, and it is vying for control of making sure that the deep state and the White House and these various presidential administrations are working hand in hand rather than against each other, because the critique is always or not always, I guess, but with people that kind of pay attention to national security is that Pompeo was the director of the CIA that kind of let Trump talk shit on the CIA, and then he becomes Secretary of State, and he like buddies up to Trump, and everybody was like, look at how weak this fucking guy is, but he put Gina Haspel in place, who's kind of this pro torture,
they call
like
her
let's
the
just
torture
fucking,
queen.
yeah, they call Bloody Gina, right? Like
Yeah,
that's her big nickname. Is like that's crazy that like so he's got control, and I think he's playing it very well, and especially with Bolton out of the picture, and Pompeo's also wanted to go after Iran. Um, like so it's like the whole idea of pushing this war narrative towards a country we shouldn't probably be at war with, is it's like it's not gone. It's like it's still here. With
No, I
and
mean,
the
people
argument
are
should not
acting
be.
like, so there's a split camp on this with like, I guess, resistance liberals and the people that listen to them, and uh some of the people that are even in like leftish media that aren't necessarily willing to say getting rid of John Bolton is a purely beneficial thing, and we can only be better off as a planet without him as national security advisor. Like, there's people that are going to bat for Bolton and making the argument on television that like firing Bolton really benefits Putin and really benefits fucking Kim Jong Un and really benefits fucking Iran. AOC tweeted out and went to the trouble of circling it to make the point. It was a CNN, still in the lower third, said Trump sides with Kim Jong Un over handling of John Bolton.
But that was
And
one of the things that they disagreed on,
and
right?
she
Was how to deal with
goes,
North Korea.
yeah, and she goes, that's it. That's the headline. Trump sides with Kim Jong Un is what she wanted to communicate as the darling of the Justice Democrats, and a democratic socialist was, I'm here for the blue imperialism. That's, like,
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of weird to see that. It's very strange, you know.
I,
I,
I'm of the impression that it's what they're there to do, and in the way that I see it, Justice Democrats, both as a pack and as their self-identified Congress critters, are there to inherit the power that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have not wrested away from them for the people.
yeah, yeah, it's I feel like they're in this weird, complicated position where I'm sure that they mean well, but their actions are not there yet. You know what I mean? Like I
If
feel like
all but Rashida Tlaib voted for this bill recently, and I think it was HR 3494. I think that was the bill. Um, it gave more immunity to the CIA, gave more immunity for lower level assets, lower level contacts, lower level agents who didn't necessarily need classified, completely fucking blacked out record, that a sheep dipped existence, as it in the parlance.
well, the
uh
CIA's just had such a tough time.
they really have,
You
man.
know, they've just been.
When I go to think about who I'm going to donate to charity to that one time a year that I do, which is usually around Easter. I'm kidding. But yeah, it's always the CIA that I think of first in terms of just, who really needs a leg up.
Yeah, somebody needs to Venmo the CIA like $5 or $10 just to like get them going. You know, they're having a tough time.
Right, right. And you can start by going to what's that guy's name? Tim Pool's Patreon. If you go to Tim Pool's Patreon, you can donate directly to the CIA.
I liked him. I don't agree with him all the time, but I do like watching his stuff. I will say that.
um,
What was it? So what was the bill? That they were just trying to give the CIA a little bit more break, and Rashida Tlaib was the only one that didn't vote for it.
Here, I'm not gonna pull up the exact text of the bill. I've done a couple of shows on it where I kind of did that, but I'll pull up John Kiriako's breakdown of it in Consortium News.
Okay.
Because he wrote about it a while ago. He also wrote this article. It was the last time I had him on this show. Um, he Here we go. He wrote this article a couple of months ago about predicting the end of John Bolton, and he left this
Whoa, holy cow.
really wide window open, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And well, it could be any day or it could be 6 months from now, but he's gonna go. He's gonna go before the election season really gets into full swing. And now he's doing a giant victory lap over predicting the inevitable, as a counterterrorism analyst would want to do. I love the man. I do. I think it's fucking. I think the congratulatory self high five is fucking hilarious, dude. Uh, the opening of the article says the CIA has quietly asked the Senate Intelligence Committee to include a provision in the next authorization bill that would vastly expand the definition of what a covert agent whose identity would be protected from unauthorized disclosure. It's the reauthorization of the Intelligence Identities Protection Act, is what it is.
Okay.
Uh, and he goes into basically what the history of what the IPA is, and that it's only been used twice since they wrote it in 81. And this is again after the church committee hearings where it blew up, and should have ended the CIA, just how corrupt they are, how they were bankrolling death squads, and then they put the hush, and then they started brand new death squads. Elliot Abrams helped do that, and now he's running Venezuela. Um, but it was used twice. It was used to convict Sharon Scranage, CIA secretary, who had an affair with an intelligence officer in Ghana and had given him names of employees and identities of Ghanaians. And she served 2.5 years in a minimum security prison. A other person to be convicted under IPAA was John Kiriakou, writing the piece, and friend of the show. And yeah, what they threw at that guy over everything, and the way that it all kind of played out for him, and what his lawyer said about, you think this is about justice and this is about mitigating damage, shut the fuck up, you're never getting your day in court, take the goddamn deal, Johnny boy. It's what that's the shit that, if you're alive in 2019 and have witnessed any of that and have been partial to any of that information, if you 100% believe the official narrative that the George W. Bush administration told about 9/11, I'm gonna kind of scratch my head at that. You know, 72% of the country knows the news is fake news. Most of the planet has an unfavorable opinion of George Bush, dancing on Ellen notwithstanding. Um, Everybody still thinks Dick Cheney's a scumbag. And yet, for a large segment of the population, the one time both George Bush and the media got everything 100% right was September 2001.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, and part of that is because it's, you know, it was an attack here.
Yeah.
That was why everybody was like, "Holy shit, this is crazy! We gotta do something. They're coming over here."
Yeah.
And that was unheard of, unheard of. Um, and I get the notion of being afraid and needing security and all of that other stuff, but the question should be at what cost? And I think that, we gave up a lot of our freedoms very conveniently and very quickly without a whole lot of questions, the second that happened.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then you had the redacted 28 pages that came out a couple years ago that basically said that Saudi Arabia was responsible for hiring the terrorists that ended up hijacking the plane. And everybody's like, "Holy shit, we got to do something about that." And pretty much everybody in Congress was like, we can't do, we should not do anything because
Well,
if we open
because
up
they
that
would
can
have
of
had to
worms.
admit that Saudi Arabia was funneling the money through the Pakistani ISI.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And which is something that they used to talk about very briefly.
Yeah.
Right, but like Joe Biden is on camera talking about it. Like, oh, Pakistan better watch out because we know some stuff, and that stuff is, it's bad stuff kind of thing. And like the reporter straight out asks him, um, Senator Biden, do we know that the Pakistani ISI was funneling money to the Saudi hijackers and the Taliban? And Joe goes, "Get a life!" and like storms off. Straight up. End of interview. Done. Get a
Democratic
life.
front runner.
Get a life. The Patriot Act, by the way, passed October 26, 2001.
The day after my birthday.
Oh, neat.
What a great birthday present
So
to me
you can
was.
you can buy yourself some data protection for your birthday and get some encrypted software in honor of the
What
Patriot
does every 14-year-old want, Steve? That's exactly what every 14-year-old should want. They should want to take their fucking shoes off at the airport and
Act.
data protected because you're going to start watching porn and you don't want everybody to know what kind of porn it is. That's
quite
every
quite
14-year-old's dream right there.
quite true. My point to that though is that is that's less than 2 months after the event. The Patriot Act is a couple thousand pages of some of the most strict and austere fucking I don't know, disproportionate legalese ever to come out of the United States Congress. And to think that in the middle of all of this shit, how fortunate for the United States Congress to have the 1995 omnibus terrorism bill just sitting there, written by Joe Biden, that they could then adopt the mid 90s draconian as fuck, tough on crime fucking language for that they just didn't have the tech ready to do yet and deliver it as the Patriot Act. Like, it's almost as if the omnibus terrorism bill was created in expectation of a large event that would galvanize the populace in a way that would make them more susceptible to trading their rights for a feeling of security.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be opportunistic in and of itself is that they figured that their chickens would come home to roost, so to speak, and we should be ready with some shit, and be ready to like implement these ideas as quickly as possible, and they might have found this opportunity, and they did, regardless of what that ends up being. There, I mean, everything that preceded that was essentially we were convinced to give up our rights. We were convinced that this is the way that we have to deal with security and safety. And it changed the course of the way we look at almost every single little these major issues in our country. What we see with the NSA and data collection, that was a huge issue that kind of came out of what happened with 9/11. The way that we look at immigration, the way that we look at security at a variety of different places, all came out of 9/11. It just changed. It just shifted the course of what we kind of understand as a country. And here's the thing, like that's one attack in the last 18 years that happened here on American soil. But how many attacks has the United States perpetrated in the last 30 years?
You know what?
So,
The number of attacks that the United States has perpetrated on other countries since the time we started this conversation is significantly higher
yeah,
than the number of attacks that we have had on American soil in the last 18 years. Um, although you could look at it another way and say that the murder of every unarmed black and brown person by a police officer is an attack on American soil.
yeah. I mean, if they're willing to call domestic terrorism an attack on American soil, right? Like these, mass shootings that we see that happen constantly. That you can say that. The issue is that they don't, and part of that is again to protect the narrative that came out of 9/11, is that this is the quintessential thing, and this could happen again at any moment, and it's because we got laxed on our security, and we didn't champion the American military enough, I mean it's all part of the game. They all kind of took their opportunities where they could see it, and it changed a whole bunch of stuff. But the larger point of that is we got attacked once in the last 18 years, and it shifted the narrative to make the American government into this like authoritarian dystopian nightmare that are their list. The NSA has tapped into people's phones. We can't go anywhere without cameras all over the place. And they're all doing this under the veil of security. When we go to a different country and literally are an invading force, as we were in Iraq, like that completely changes the dynamic of that country. Like you got to think of what we're doing to the psychology of these other countries, and you can use 9/11 as an example for that. That our psychology as a country was completely shifted and completely changed based on one
Isn't it
attack.
isn't it amazing how otherwise rational people went full military, let's go and invade some countries, let's not question what's coming out of George Bush's mouth about this, let's not question the press who is not questioning what is coming out of George Bush's mouth about this. Fuck you, Medea Benjamin, sit down, we're fighting him over there because we don't want to fight him here. Like the
Yeah, yeah. What?
propaganda effort put into that was so fucking monumental that it's just now starting to be a little bit more commonplace for people to openly question the official narrative on 9/11. Like
Yeah.
that's a psychological scar.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and it kind of just shows you the power and effects of fear-based governance is essentially what it kind of shows you. That even rational, like anti-war advocates, there's a large group of people who at that time were like, yeah, let's do it. We got to strike back. We got to hit them hard. What was it? Operation uh, Freaky Fast or whatever the fuck it was, where
Uh,
we
oh yeah,
bombed it.
no. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah, we
Uh,
like bombed the shit out of Baghdad, and we
yeah.
watched it on television. I
Oh,
remember
Desert
watching that
Storm.
at school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
Fucking,
it was crazy. Why am I watching this at school? Like this is, and everybody was excited about it. Everybody was like, "This is it. We're winning. America's championing shit. This
yeah,
is how we bring freedom." And it's like,
right?
and and even like at that time, I was just like, "Wait, why is this here?" I mean, I kind of got involved a little bit, and then I had to think about it to be like, "What the fuck? What are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Why are we showing this stuff to a bunch of 14 and 15-year-olds for one? And why are we championing this shit? And it never made any sense to me. And people kept telling me like we have to be safe, we have to be safe, and that's ensuring our safety. But that's how you go from that is they took that opportunity to say, well, gear up the war machine, let's fucking do it. Get everybody on board, get that narrative going, make sure that Congress is passing the bill, make sure everybody's voting to invade this country, weapons of mass destruction, weapon of mass destruction. Let's create this narrative and let's do this. And they took that opportunity and they rolled with it as quickly as possible because they needed to capitalize on it. And I think this plan had been waiting, and they were waiting for that perfect powder keg to set it all off, and that's kind of what it was. And it's unfortunate because if you're going to sit here and claim that America is the greatest country in the world, which a lot of people do, and especially a lot of people that go fuck yeah, bomb those countries or whatever the fuck, right? It's like they always claim that America is the greatest country in the world. If you are, then where are we in actually bringing democracy to these countries, actually going in there and diplomatically trying to figure out how to bring democracy to these countries? We're not. We're looking at countries like Syria that had socialized healthcare and socialized education, and it's turned into a war zone. That's not bringing
Libya.
those people democracy.
Libya had fucking uh its citizenry was fucking completely hooked up. Gaddafi had like a free power grid and all kinds of shit, and was pushing for a Pan-African currency
Yes,
off the
that was
dollar.
that was what did it.
Yeah,
He wanted to push off the petrodollar, and then they were like, "Well, this guy's fucking got to go." And it's the same shit that we tried to do in Venezuela, and it's interesting because Venezuela, I think, was an interesting case in the sense of like you got to see step by step how that shit happens because of the way technology has spread around, and the fact that we can do this on opposite sides of a country, a couple thousand miles apart, but we can still communicate with each other and share these thoughts and opinions on a platform that's going to reach a lot more people. uh that's huge, but that also means that it's very difficult to hide shit like this anymore, and things are starting to become far more in the open, which is part of the reason why they have to control the narrative. But Venezuela was, you could see it step by step by step on how they were inciting this coup, and and how it kind of related to these various different ways that essentially we put American military intervention in play. Like they just called this guy the fucking president, or the interim president, or whatever the fuck they
mhm,
want to call him, right? Juan
yeah,
Guaido, and everybody
yeah.
from Venezuela was like, "Who the fuck is this guy?"
I had and it's has nothing to. I'm not like plugging the guy's show or anything, but like right when that happened, I had John Kiriakou on my show, and that was he said the exact same thing you did. Who is Juan Guaido? Like,
Yeah.
who is this guy? And it turns out that he is a George Washington
Yep.
University educated, well off, well connected CIA fucking hooked the shit up.
He was made in a think tank,
Well,
right?
yeah, no, it's what I've always said. If you could fucking create puppet dictator in a lab for South American country that the U.S. wants to overthrow, it would come out and look
Boom.
exactly like
That's
Juan
what
Guaido.
it is. Yeah, what they're trying to do with Venezuela is like you have two great parents, right? And they're not perfect. They kind of fight every once in a while. They get in their way, but they're taking care of you, right? You still got food. You got your room. You can go to the doctor and you don't have to pay these bills. You're doing all right. And then all of a sudden, like this person a couple blocks down just shows up at your house and goes, "Hey, this guy's your dad now." And you're like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. We found him in our backyard. Now he's your fucking dad."
Mm-hmm.
And the mom's like, "Wait a minute. I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
What's going on?" And then the dad's still there, like all his shit is still in the house, and they're like, "We got
Right.
to get rid of this stuff. We got to get rid of this shit out of the house." Like that's what they're doing with Venezuela. It's like the neighborhood watch is trying to replace one of your parents, is essentially
Except
what
for
you're
in
trying
this
to
case,
do.
the neighborhood watch brings the new dad in a fucking Apache attack helicopter,
Yeah.
lands on somebody else's house, blames the people inside for building the house in what was clearly a landing zone, and then says, "Hey, guy whose shit is in here, if you don't leave, I'm going to start feeling threatened.
Yeah,
And
right.
I'm going to have to call all of my friends and have them bring all of their guns because I don't feel safe without them. So you need to leave."
And it's sort of I was having a conversation with my father-in-law about this, and what we boiled it down to is, look, you don't have to agree with Nicolas Maduro. You don't have to think that he's the best. You don't have to think that he's the worst. And whether you think he's the best or not doesn't even fucking matter. What matters is, do you think it's right for the American government and the American military to dictate who gets to be the ruler of a foreign nation? To dictate a legally elected leader to get ousted, right? Like, is that okay? And my father-in-law was like, no. And I was like, that's what they're fucking doing. That's what's happening in Venezuela, and that coup failed for all intents and purposes. As of now, that coup has failed,
Yeah.
and it goes to like people like the Margaret Flowers and Kevin Reese from Popular Resistance that fought with the as embassy protectors. Lee
Yep.
Camp, Jimmy Dore, Aaron Mate, and the Gray Zone Project. All these people were out there reporting what exactly was happening in Venezuela.
So from here, from this deck, I had my friend Al Suarez, who works with Kevin Zeese on actions and is flew up from Southern Florida. He was Tim Canova's Latino outreach coordinator.
Hmm?
And he's heavily involved with socialist and revolutionary activism. But he flew up to go stand with Code Pink and with one of the groups from Philly that came over to add a lot of physical presence to the event. And from here, I was having him on 3 or 4 days. He was outside the embassy. He was fucking, nobody could get video. Like everything was being jammed in and out of like right in front of it. They had to go a couple of blocks down the street when they could make a call. But he could make a call. And yeah, dude, I have an entire playlist of the siege of the Venezuelan embassy. Even 90% of left media didn't cover that shit. Like it was shameful. It was. And for me to have, minimal reach, but literally a guy on the ground in front of the embassy that could tell me what was going on was
Right.
doing a better job than fucking 100% of corporate media and the majority of
Yeah.
left media.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. Gray Zone Project, they were there. Mint Press had Alex Rubenstein, who was in there, um, who went on to write some great stuff about it in Mint Press for him. And I don't know if Jimmy had anyone there. No, no, I guess he did. I don't know. Actually, that was a crazy week. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, there were only a handful.
Yeah, there was a lot of shit going on when they were like getting kicked out of the embassy and they were turning. I mean, all of it was just such a shit show. Like, and then
People lined
everything
up to
was
rip
happening so
bags of
quickly.
food out of motherfuckers' hands.
Yeah, yeah, and everything was happening so quickly. It was like it became kind of difficult to keep up with everything. And then once things kind of quieted down and you kind of got to see what the scope of everything was, and but I mean the whole point of that is like that coup failed, which
Yeah,
again is part of John Bolton's thing, and Bolton wanted to make that shit happen, and it didn't. And I think that's probably why he resigned or fired or whatever the fuck, is he saw himself going, that's as far as he could go within this administration. So what else is he going to do under as a national security advisor, right? Like what
yeah,
part of this national security is now in danger when you disagree with Donald Trump on what to do with North Korea, how to enact a war with Iran, how to enact a coup with Venezuela, and all of these things don't work out. So maybe he did say, all right, this is as far as I can go in this administration. I'm going to pull back and maybe go do something else in the shadows for a little bit and maybe
Well,
come back for the next one.
I'll let's talk about that for a minute because I just
Yeah.
did a show on this. Before just I think 6 days before or 5 days before he took the job as national security advisor, he stepped down from the board of Diamond Energy. Diamond Energy is the new name for the Harbinger Group, which is the new name for Zapata Oil, which was George W. Bush's oil company.
Okay.
This is the through the Harbinger Group, they got all kinds of lucrative contracts in the Mid East, and the Diamond Energy is one of the people who were vying for that pipeline through Syria, which was the whole reason we were fucking bombing the shit out of Syria in the first place, is for a liquid natural gas pipeline. Um, and he's also Diamond Energy is partnered with the Jordan Valley Energy, which
Okay.
Benjamin Netanyahu just promised as a campaign promise: if you elect me, I will annex the rest of Jordan Valley. There's been an oil drilling fucking war going on over there for a number of years, and there's a couple of companies that aren't part of that Jordan Valley Energy cabal. That are, I believe, Syrian and Russian. And Netanyahu's trying to annex all that. Now Bolton can return to the board of Diamond Energy and influence it from over there. He also has a super PAC. I don't know if you knew this or not. John Bolton
Oh, no, I
personally
did not.
has a fucking political action committee. He's got. I was reading from the document the other day. Um, but this whole thing on how to like psychologically manipulate a voter profile, like base voters
Jesus.
based on voter profile, and it's in like the fucking research material, like his handbook for his pack.
That's crazy.
This is a guy who was working with Michael Chertoff, again, part of PNAC, but and the Flynn Intel Group with Cambridge Analytica. Like, his reach and his shadiness just doesn't really stand. You're absolutely 100% right when you say he can go back to the shadows. That's exactly what he's going to do, and he's
That's
got
yeah. That's
existing
kind of what it feels like.
infrastructure already there.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it feels like to me. Is I mean, you can sit here and fucking have the argument of whether he was fired or he resigned, and none of that shit matters. What matters is what he's gonna do. You know, what matters is what his history and his legacy is, and how we can try to figure out how, maybe as a society, how to stay one step ahead of fucking John Bolton.
Right.
You know,
Or at this point, how do you unfuck a planet that has been through 30 years of John Bolton?
John Bolton.
You know,
Well,
there's
the first thing I would say is you got to stand up against the American military industrial complex, against a war economy that has been going on minimum 18 years, but way longer than 18 years. But for people that are new to the resistance or whatever, is minimum 18 years. This has been going on. John Bolton's a part of it, and you let's start recognizing uh, what propaganda is, what war propaganda really is. That's what we can learn from 9/11 is you can look at the way things were set up, and then you can parallel that to how the media is used and how these pieces of legislation start getting into office and how these politicians start talking about these things, right? And then you can actively voice your support for peace and your protest against this sort of shit. That's a big way to start staying ahead of it, is just using our voice, because when you really think about it, a lot of people are not for war. Most of the citizens of this country don't want to fucking deal with it. They don't
yeah.
like it. They think it's a waste of money. So more people just need to be encouraged of that. And there should be a disassociation made that if you are anti-war, that you don't care about veterans. Because if you're anti-war, you care about veterans the most. Because you just don't want to see any more fucking veterans.
Right.
So, you know, like,
I have volunteered most of my adult life. I'm a habitual volunteer. Like if
yep.
there's something that needs to be, if you need a volunteer and I'm available, or I will ditch something to make myself available, I'm a fucking guy, Um, and I've done a lot of work with veterans groups, and I've spent a good amount of time like feeding these guys and talking to them. When you feed somebody, like you have a decent conversation with them,
Yeah.
especially if
Yeah.
you're cooking good food and you don't suck at it. uh, Otherwise the conversations are pretty short. But most of at least the people at like the Menlo Park VA or the Palo Alto VA or what, like most of them are veterans for peace and anti-war. It's the ones that
Yeah.
are either wrapped in the depths of their PTSD but trying to function in society, a society that worships them, a society that's conditioned to fucking bow and scrape and thank them every time they fucking walk, talk, blink, or fart. The dealing with that um, can make you very, very pro-military post-service, and then also like going in with "I'm here to fucking kill," like it
Yeah.
affects you a little
Yeah.
less if you're more psychotic going in, and you transition back to society a little bit better because you have no fucking empathy. You're just doing your job and getting paid.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of friends that are vets, and almost all of them, you know, anti-war, don't want to see military spending as high as it is. But that's also not as much public knowledge because people don't make that kind of correlation. So organizations like Veterans for Peace and stuff like that should be more in the public forefront, and kind of that needs to be part of the narrative a lot more. Is these anti-war veterans that are out there? Yeah, I know a bunch of them. They're great. They're yeah.
Until we can we in, until there's a an arm of media willing to give a national platform to an anti-war voice, or there's someone running for office who is genuinely anti-war, who doesn't have to make the caveat, I'm only against regime change wars, or
Mhm.
I'm only against the bad wars, or I'm only against the preemptive strikes, or but I won't hesitate to fucking turn a country into a 300,000 hole desert golf course if provoked. Like
Right.
there's no genuine, and I mean, you can look to like a Howie Hawkins or an Ian Schlackman in the Green Party, or even Adam Kokesh in the Libertarian Party, and find genuine, not just anti-interventionist but anti-war voices. But there aren't even anti-war celebrities, Krish. We
Yeah.
like there
Yeah.
really aren't like peacenik fucking celebrity. And the last time that we really had one, like people still fucking want to lynch the character of Jane Fonda for that shit. People still drag Susan Sarandon's fucking anti-war activism out as a
Yeah.
strike against her.
Yeah. I mean, that's how they see it. They see it as
And,
traitorous,
and
as
this is
treasonous
supposed to be
almost.
the left, the liberals,
Yeah.
that are doing this. So there we have such a nationalistic collective attitude and such a warlike collective attitude, a pro-military attitude that we've had. At least, I mean, I was born in 1978. I've never not seen pro-military propaganda on the television or in a fucking Hollywood movie or any of that shit, man. And the NFL is a giant recruitment campaign. The fucking 8,000 foot long American flags being rolled out everywhere. NASCAR is a collective military recruitment ad. Like,
Yeah.
it's just the narrative itself is so pervasive
Yeah.
that we've got to have like a multi-armed attack for the sake of reality, where with what you're doing, stand up, and you're touring and shit like that. And please tell me your tour dates, because I gotta go here soon.
Yeah.
But decentralized activism, people getting together in small groups that can't be infiltrated, and going and doing an action that like multiple groups of people are doing in a nonviolent way to spread awareness. You need that. You need large mass movements that are going to be infiltrated, but you
Yeah.
hope that the violence is at a minimum, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think people should be more encouraged to talk about peace and being anti-war and stepping up to any level of propaganda that says that that's the course of action that we need to take. Because there's always another way. There's always another way.
I
So,
agree
yeah,
100%. But yeah, I do have to go. I gotta go
yeah, me too. Yeah,
set
I
up
got.
in a different part of the house, get ready to do the free Assange vigil. Krish Mohan, please come back anytime. I enjoy
Thanks,
talking
man.
to you. And if you said you were going to the Midwest, if you have any more tour dates, please give those, and reiterate the Wisconsin ones.
Yeah, I'm opening for Lee on September 20th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and September 21st in Madison, Wisconsin. And then I am working on a brand new show. It's called Politely Angry. It's about humanity's need to compete with each other, and there's a bunch of stories about India. And I'm going to be in Charlottesville, Virginia on September 27th and Norfolk, Virginia on September 28th. And then I'm going to be in Michigan October 3rd in Kalamazoo, October 4th in Lansing, and October 5th in Detroit. But I've got tour dates all over the damn place. So that's available on my website, which is ramennoodlescomedy.com. It's RAMAN noodlescomedy.com. And you can find all my tour dates. And my newest album is available for sale there as well.
Kick ass. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank
Uh,
you, Steve. I appreciate it.
this has been Slow News Day. My name is Steve Poikinen, and good luck to us all.